Hi, I'm Shelley Desautels, and I am the candidate for the North Okanagan Shuswap for the Liberal Party of Canada. I was born and raised in Vernon, and I now live in Salmon. We've been there for 7 years. I am a mother of 2 teenagers. I am a wife of a veteran. I involved in many community things in our community. I am the service officer at the Legion, and I really am doing this. So I'm putting my name forward to run for MP because I feel like our community just needs representation that is going to act and do things for all members of our community. And we need a voice that's going to bring our issues and our concerns up to Ottawa. I feel like we're always being represented what the party is coming down to us, but we need to have this representation that's really dedicated to the people and are going to listen to us. And this is why I am running for MP, because we have a party that has smart policies. We're looking out for Canadians. Through the pandemic, we were here for the people. We were here for the individuals, and we weren't here to cater to the big businesses. So this is why I'm running, and this is the party that I'm running for.
Okay, so we're going to now ask you the 3 present questions, followed by 3 that you have chosen from the basket. So we'll go off with the first question. With so many Canadians receiving CRB and employers struggling to keep staff, how will your party help small business recover from the impacts of the pandemic by getting Canadians back to work?
So CRB is actually, we used to have CERB, and CRB was brought in afterwards in 2020. CRB is very much like EI. So this is you have to have been laid off. You need to actually prove that you're looking for work in order to get the benefits from CRB. What we're talking about here is a much bigger picture than getting back to work. We have many areas that we need to look at. So for instance, I've talked to many organizations in our communities to find out where they're finding people are struggling to coming back to work. The biggest one is mental health. Through COVID, we actually discovered that mental health affects us all. It's not just the vulnerable communities that are affected by mental health issues. I was talking to a business owner, and she said that she had employees that just didn't come back for another shift. And when she asked them why, they said, "We realize that we are not comfortable coming back to work with people." So we really need to address mental health in order for people to feel safe coming back to their jobs. And this is something that the Liberal Party, we're going to be putting money into a mental health fund that we're going to be giving to the provinces that are allocated specifically to support people with mental health issues and get rid of these backlogs and the wait times. The next thing is that a lot of these industries that we're struggling to find people to work for are hospitality industries. So these are going to be filled by women primarily, and we have a lot of women that cannot afford or cannot find accessible childcare. So we need to be able to support women to get back into the workforce. So if they're working a part-time job, they can actually afford childcare at the same time. So this is why we're bringing in our $10 a day childcare plan, and we're going to increase the number of childcares that's available in communities. The other piece of this is housing. So if you cannot find a house to live in your community, then you won't be able to work in that community. So what we're doing is we're going to introduce more homes into our communities. 250,000 more homes are going to be built or retrofitted and brought in so that we have spaces available for people to be able to live here. And on top of that, we just really need to focus on having a better workplace for people. If people aren't happy with their jobs, we've realized that we can work from home. We don't need to go into the job. So this is something that COVID has really made clear to us. So let's think a little bit of the bigger picture of why people aren't going back to work and not just blaming it on people are needing supports to keep them through.
Thank you. You touched on this a little bit, but this goes a little bit deeper. The housing market is out of control and rental housing is almost non-existent. This affects the workforce. No housing, no workforce. No workforce, no business. What measures will your party put in place to create a more realistic housing market for first-time home buyers in our riding? And second, do you have plans to assist with providing affordable rental housing projects for young families and seniors?
Yeah, so I'm really happy that you asked this question because we have a fantastic housing plan. So like I mentioned, we are going to be building and retrofitting 250,000 new homes to be put into the market. This brings our total of homes from what we've already done up to 1.4 million homes. Now, just another piece of that is in order to get those investments into our communities, we actually need to have a representative that's going to advocate for these housing initiatives and bring those investments into our community. So that's one area that I really want to focus on, is getting investments into our community. So another piece of this housing plan, the affordable housing plan that we have with the Liberal Party, is that we are going to put a tax on speculation. So it's an anti-flipping tax. So if you purchase a home at a low price and flip it within 12 months, you're going to be taxed on that. Now we do have exceptions in place. So if you are divorced, if you get pregnant, if you have to move for a job, then you will not have to pay for those taxes. But this is really, flipping really jacks up prices on homes. These affordable homes that are generally scooped up by speculators are ones that our lower income families are able to purchase. But with those out of the market, we are now reducing this lower income bracket housing market, and we're jacking up the prices to something that's not affordable. We also have the Buyer's Bill of Rights, which I'm not really going to get into too much, but if you want to take a look at it, the Home Buyer's Bill of Rights is really protecting our buyers. But I do want to address this last question here, in that we are actually going to have a rent-to-own program. So this is going to allow tenants to get into deals with their landlords and reduce the amount of rent that they are paying in order to put money aside to then put a down payment on that home. So they'll generally set up a target of about 5 years. And this is going to get people out of this endless loop of being in a rental, which we see time and time again. If you're in the rental market, how are you ever going to afford to buy a house? So this rent-to-own program is going to be perfect to be able to get people into a place where they go from rental to home ownership.
Okay. Number 3, the vaccine passport has caused much upheaval in our province. Many all-candidate forums have been cancelled due to the conflict over the program and threat of violence. Although it is a provincial initiative, it is affecting all BCers, and with more provinces implementing the passport, it will soon be an issue for our entire country. What do you believe needs to happen to ease the conflict?
This issue is a leadership problem. We need to have leaders that are willing to stand up to this violence, this attack, this rhetoric that is happening that's causing this unease in this discourse. We have had a sitting MP that has sat silently while shop owners have been vandalized and threatened. We have local candidates that are being intimidated, and we have anti-vax and anti-mask rallies that are appearing in our communities. But nobody is speaking up about that, and this silence is normalizing these behaviors. So we are going to need proof of vaccinations to be traveling, whether we like it or not. Our Canada is a democratic country. We are not a violent country, and we don't settle our differences by attacking or promoting hate. So we need to take those ideas that we have, and we need to put that into the ballot box on September 20th. And we need to show, if you want Canada to be going in a different direction, this is the perfect time for you to be able to share your opinions at the ballot box. So if you want to keep moving forward in this safe, because our vaccines, the reason we want these vaccines is to have a healthy community. We're protecting our neighbors. We know that we're probably going to be healthy and safe, but what about the people that can't get the vaccines? We need to be protecting those people, the children under 12 that cannot get a vaccine. So let's take our voices, and instead of turning them to hate and anger, let's turn those into positives and put them into the ballot box and show us exactly where you want Canada to move forward. And I, for one, want a safe Canada and a healthy Canada.
Okay, so here's the first question. If elected, will your government amend the Federal Species at Risk Act to include a social, economic impact and risk assessment, including a robust consultation period with local business communities?
So I think it is very important for us to have consultation with not only our businesses, but have it with our Indigenous communities, have it with our foresters, our ecologists, our biologists. It is important for us to always be reviewing some of these acts and seeing where we could do better. We can always improve on our systems. And I don't know what specifically we have in place for the federal party, the Liberal Party, to amend this act. But definitely, if this is a concern, that we will definitely take a look at what we can do to always improve things, because we want the best Canada and we want a better Canada, and we want to protect our local communities, including our wildlife and our diversity and our ecosystems.
Second question. Transportation is a key support for economic growth and development. The bridge is in such disrepair and traffic is busier than ever. Understanding that the number one highway widening is a joint venture between the province and the federal governments, how are you going to move this project along in our area?
Well, this comes right back down to that representation and being an advocate for what we need in our communities. And that is my number one job as elected as MP, is to be an advocate for these projects. We cannot move forward with infrastructure projects if we do not have the funding. And the only way to get that funding is if the government knows we need the funding. So yes, we have seen actually in the other highways in the Shuswap area, we have got federal funding. And I have heard time and time again that our bridges, especially here in Sicamous, are in disarray and we need to repair these. So if we're looking for federal funding, I personally will be advocating for any kind of investments that need to come into our community, because we have been long just kind of neglected in this area, and people seem to think that the government doesn't know that we exist, and that comes down to our voices not being properly represented in Ottawa. And that would be my goal, is to have our voices heard all the way up in Ottawa.
Last question. We must not forget the horrors the Indigenous population endured in the residential schools. As we have all been witness to the pain and suffering inflicted on these people and the hundreds of burial sites identified throughout the country, what does your party plan to do to help in the healing process?
So we have already allocated funds towards helping discover. We know that there are more graves. We know there are more bodies that we need to be found. And we are going to put everything that we possibly can into supporting those communities and doing this in a way that is culturally sensitive. So sometimes things may look like they're taking longer, but it's because we're in consultations. We are working with communities to find out how they want to proceed with things. But we have allocated money towards this. And not only this, we have been talking with communities. We have actually lifted 109 of the 105 boil watery advisories. So we have actually lifted more boil watery advisories on communities than were in place when we were elected. And we are working on 48 of the 50 already that need to be lifted in the future. So we are working closely with Indigenous communities. We have, as we've seen in Saskatchewan with Cowessess, where we have changed the child welfare to be now part of their community so that children aren't taken away from their communities, and that they will be able to have their own child welfare systems within their community. And we're going to do this across Canada. So we are really going to be working with Indigenous and building up their own systems, their own governance. This is about bringing the land back to Indigenous that they rightfully deserve, And the Liberal Party is dedicated to working with them and making sure everything is culturally done and that it's done with consultation. And we will get it done.